This is the one from the book. Let me go down in case there's a problem. I'm monitoring also.
Good morning. So we want to begin the class at this time, but I want to say a prayer before we begin. Dear Lord, we thank you for a good weekend that you've given unto us. We thank you for our lives. We thank you for the opportunity that you've given unto us even to attend this class. Lord, we pray that you give us knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that comes from you, Lord. We thank you for the day also. We pray, God, that you protect each one of us and you be with us till the end of the day, Lord. We love you, God, and we thank you. For it is in the name of Jesus Christ we do pray and believe. So today we are dealing with the reading skills. And we've started with an hypothesis that reading is an important activity that every scholar or a student is constantly involved in. And we're also saying that it is a long life activity, meaning people engage in reading in different fields for different reasons. For example, for academic, for professional growth, for religious reasons, and even sometimes it's just an activity for pastime. So reading is an activity that does not just end once you're through with your studies. It continues thereafter. That is our hypothesis. Then we want us to look at the objectives that we are supposed to attain at the end of this lecture. We should be able to define reading. We should be able to explain how you develop a purpose for your reading, explain what the various types of reading entail, what they are, expound on the effective reading and comprehension techniques, and discuss the skill of note making, which is part of reading. As you read, you make notes. When to define what is reading, sometimes it may not just be easy to define terms that we are used to. But probably what we think reading is may not be what it is. Sometimes when we get used to something or defining something, sometimes we define it in the wrong way, or we do it in the wrong way, and the wrong way looks like it is the right way. So we say reading is defined as a process. When something is a process, that means it has a beginning and an end. And we're saying it is a process of interpreting, analyzing, and understanding written messages. So as you read, there's the idea of interpreting what you're reading, analyzing, and trying to understand. We also say that it is a dynamic process. When we say it is dynamic, then it means that it is changing. It's not constant. It is not static. It is a dynamic process that you're involved in. And we're saying it will involve interpreting what you're reading. We also say it requires thought and attention to what you're reading. We are insisting that it is not a passive activity. It is active. It is an active activity. You are actively involved into what you're reading. You're not passively just receiving what you're reading in a textbook or in a reading material, but you are reacting to it. So you are react to it. Sometimes you can agree with an idea. Let's say, for example, you're reading a newspaper. You had a witness, for example, something happened, and you're reading a newspaper, and you see that what is reported in that newspaper is not exactly what you saw on the ground. So in that case, you disagree. You could be reading in a book, for example, you're reading courses of HIV, for example, and you find that the course that you're given there is not clear, or it is not what you have learned before from another writer. So we're saying when you're reading, you don't agree 100% with what you're reading. you can have questions, you can access whether it is true or the information that is given there, whether it is clear. You check on the explanation that are given there. So reading is active. We're saying you interact with your background knowledge and what you're reading. Background knowledge is what you already know outside the material that you're using. Then we're looking at the purpose of reading. Why do people engage in reading? Of course, we have very many reasons why we engage into reading, but we've looked at just a few of them. And one is that sometimes we read just to get entertained or just to pass time or for leisure. And this one gives us an opportunity to read novels, to read newspapers, magazines, leisure materials. But all the time when reading for entertainment, many times we also get information. Like if you're reading a magazine, for example, about beauty, there's something that you will learn that can help you. You're reading a magazine about how things are done or just styles of life, you get something out of it. So we are saying when you're reading for leisure, many times you also gain information, but we are saying the main purpose when you're reading is just for you to pass time or just for entertainment. And we're saying this one happens with newspapers, magazines, and such. Then we also say that we also read for general information, for us to get involved or to get information, for us to be informed in a number of ways. We can read, for example, things concerning current affairs, what is happening in politics, which parties are campaigning this time, who is the leader of such parties, what is happening in those parties, the conflicts, just to get informed. We also read to get what is happening, the pandemics that we have about corona, for example. We can read on materials to get just knowledge. We can also read on social reasons, relationships, things to do with relationships, dating, marriage, and such things, so that we get information. And we're saying this reading is quite important. If you read widely, then you will find that it is easy for you to interact with people of all types, of all calibers, walks of life, people with different opinions, people with different ideas. You will be able to interact with them well because you have read maybe something related to a given religion, for example. So you'll be able to interact with people in that kind of religion. You have read about people, how people think, what people value, what people like. I mean, just general knowledge. It helps you well to interact with people and to be able to live a healthier life. A healthier life is a life that does not involve conflicts. You don't get into conflicts with people. You understand why they do the things, why they do them, the way they do them as you read. Then we are also saying that you can also read for instructions and directions. The world we're living in, for example, when you are coming to this university, you didn't need to ask, where is the administration block? Where is the admission block? Where is the ICT? Where is this? You are able to read around and get directed to such places. We also read for instructions. For example, many consumer goods that we buy, there are instructions that are written there on how to use them, or you're given a procedure on how to prepare something on the consumer good. So you read that so that you get good results. When you're traveling, for example, there are travel guides. You can be given a travel guide, you read, you get directions without asking people, where is this place, where is this place? Then, of course, when you're using our phones, you know, we can be able to get directions from there. Then we also read for academic purpose, and this is a main reason as to why we are here. But it doesn't mean that we don't read for other reasons, but the academic purpose is a main reason as to why we are here. So we are saying this one is where you read and you're expected to master knowledge in your area of specialization. You don't only read the course, you are not limited to the course outline that you're given in class. You are not limited to what you discuss in class. because that is the area of your interest. At the end of the 4 years, it is expected that you grow knowledge in that area so that you can be able to quote, you can be able to argue out with good arguments, valid and quality arguments in your area of study. So what does it require now? You read widely in that subject. You are in, for example, applied mathematics, read and understand what it is. You are in IT, read, understand exactly that area so that someone asks you anything concerning that subject, you're able to respond correctly. And for you now to do this, then you must come up with a strategy of reading to be efficient and effective, so that you master it. So you need reading strategies. You need a reading skill that helps you to read and understand your area well. So what we have is reading, the reasons for reading. Then we have reading styles or techniques or type of reading. So the technique that you adapt, that you would want to use, then it will be determined by the reason as to why you are reading. And we want to look at those techniques, can call them types, techniques, or strategies of reading. And I want to begin with the first strategy, that is survey. That does not look like it is a type of reading, but I will explain this, you understand it is a type of reading. Survey in the normal way, we use it when we are referring to land. We say the land needs to be surveyed, a land has to be surveyed. So we use it for land, and it looks at the general view of what we are talking about. Still in reading, it is the same way. Before you start reading a material, it is advisable that you survey it. And I want to take you through on how you survey that material. Why are you surveying it in the first place? Just to have a general view, a general look, an outward look of how the material is organized, how the book is organized, how many chapters you have in that book, how many areas that are there in that book, how detailed are they, and such. So you do it so that you can predict within a very short period of time whether you would want to read that book or not, whether you're going to read just part of it or parts of it or the whole of it. So survey is done in 2 levels. One, you will say there's a book reading material selection level where you're moving, you want to select a book for reading. You've walked to the library, you already have the topic, you already have what you want to read. So you go to the library and look for a book. So what do you do now when you're looking for the correct book to read? We say you do it at 2 levels. There's a book reading material selection level. Then after you have selected the book, then you also survey it. And I want to begin with the first one, book reading material selection level. And I'm saying at this level, the reader examines the following parts. All these parts, you will get them in any book that you pick on. And it is good for you. After this, you just go and check, pick on a book, and now get conversant with these areas. The first one you look at is the title. And we're saying that the title should touch on the subject of interest. The subject of interest. If, for example, you want to read on the evolution of man, that book must touch on that topic to some extent. It must be a book on history. It cannot be a book on science. So you begin there. There is an exception here for literature students. For example, you may find that a title is used ironically, or what you find on the title is not what is in the book. And I've given 2 examples here, like I'll marry when I want. It looks like it's going to talk about marriage, but it's a political book. The beautiful ones are not yet born. It looks like it's going to talk about beauty and such things and why they are not yet born. But the book purposely talks about politics. So those are exceptions in literature. But the other subject is good for you to look at the title well before you start reading. It must be guiding you to the subject or the content that you're looking for. Then we have what you call the publisher's blurb. This one is what is written at the cover of the book. It is normally at the cover of the book, and it is written by the publishers. So it describes the book. For example, it can talk about briefly of the content of that book. It can also talk about other titles that are related to such. It may also contain maybe the achievements that the writer has gotten through writing that book. It can also give you how the main theme or the main topic or the main subject that the book talks about. So the title, the publisher's blurb, and then we also have the reviewer's comment. Check on the reviewer's comment. This one is of course written by someone who will read the book, the writer's book, and make a comment on evaluate on the work, how good it is. And we're seeing it should also be looked at critically. Why? Because the reviewer can be biased. He can have some positive comments about the writer that are not true. So it is good for you when you're looking at it, you look at it with a critical mind, an open mind. We also say you look at the introduction, which is normally given at the beginning of the book. The introduction can tell you about how the content is going to be organized. You also look at the content page, which indicates the topics, the subtopics, the chapters. It's good for you to look at that because you may want to select just on one chapter. You look at the printing history. The printing history I've indicated that is very important because it shows the year the book was published. It also gives you a book number, which we call the ISBN. Let me talk about why the year of publication is important. Look at, for example, you're reading a book about the Kenyan government. You want to read about the organization of the Kenyan government. So you get a book that was written in 1970, is the one that you're reading. The Kenyan government organization has changed. We never used to have the counties, now we have them. So it is good for you to read the book, the latest edition as much as possible. Why the book number again? If a book does not have the ISBN number or the International Standard Book number, then that book may not have information that is valid, that is worthy quoting in any material that you're writing. You also check whether it has been revised, and we encourage a student or a scholar to read the latest edition of a book. Why? Because it contains the current or more current information. And this printing history, you will get it in the initial pages of the book. Before you even move to introduction, you'll be able to get it. Then the author's background is important. It tells us whether the author is an expertise or is an expert on the subject that he's writing. Then we have the indexes, the glossaries or references which appear at the end of the book. Those end pages of the book. And the glossaries or the references will give you further materials for reading. Indexes will be able to help you get, for example, a specific word that you're looking for very fast. It just shows it is a list of the terms, the technical terms more often that are used and on what page they appear. So it is easy for you to get them when you use the indexes. This is something, the book survey at this level, it is something that can take you around 5 minutes also, and you are through with that. You're able to check all that. Then if you find that the book is okay and you would want to read it, is now when you move to the next level of survey. You have looked at the content page, you looked at the chapters, you're okay, you want to read the book. There are chapters that you have selected that you want to read, or you want to read the entire book. Then you go to the next level, and the next level is the surveying the selected book. So before you start reading, there are a few things that you just do to that book. For example, check on diagrammatic representations. Check on the charts, the maps, the graphs that are there. Just go through the book and check. Look at, for example, if you're doing something like you're reading a book on business, for example, check what kind of charts are there. You're doing a book like a geography, check on what maps are there. Are you interested in them? Are the ones that are they of any use to you? Then there's something called the signals and signs that we also check before we start reading. And we're saying these are the ones that capture your eye. For example, when you look at my work, the surveying the selected book, that topic captures your eye because it is different from the others. Look at the other words that are in bold. That one will also capture you. You have seen the word colors even before you start reading. You have seen letters that are in capital letter. You have seen underlining that is underlined there. So those are the ones that we call signals. They are just signs. They are just guides that the writer will make use of to attract your eye, so that as you look at it, as you open a page like this, those highlights that will capture your eye, the one we're calling the signals. So it is good for you just to go through the book. You're just opening the chapter that you're reading, you're surveying it, you're looking at how many pages are there, what is there, the diagrams that are used, the signals, the signs that are used before you start reading. And that is about survey. Then we have another type of reading, or a skill of reading, a strategy or a technique, and that is scanning. Scanning is looking for some particular or specific information or item in what you're reading. Actually, it works like the way we go for scanning for you. When someone has gone for an head scan, it concentrates on the area, the thing that you are looking for. What are you looking for? That is where it concentrate. You will concentrate. You already have, for example, you want to check on a given name. You want to check on a given sentence. Look at the newspaper, for example. There was a game that was played. You didn't watch it, and you pick on a newspaper, and that is what you want to check. Who scored what and what happened? You just go direct. You'll go direct to the sports area, check on that, and that is all. Maybe you had about a meeting, a political rally that you were not able to watch. You just go straight, read about that in the newspaper. So scanning, you look for specific information on what you want. So you already have the idea, you already have what you're looking for. So as you move to the material, you forget about anything else except that information that you're looking for. So we say it is useful because, again, it saves time. Then we have the other technique of reading, that is skimming. Skimming is actually the opposite of scanning. Skimming, you look for a general idea in a text. You're looking for a general idea. For example, you pick on a newspaper. You just want to see what is happening. So you look at the current affairs, you look at politics, you look at social issues that are there, you look at sports. So general feel. So in case of a reading material, you'll open it. You just want to see what is there, how many chapters are there, what are the chapters. You can read maybe the table, the content area you want to open, maybe a given chapter. You can just look at it. How many subtopics are there? Generally, what is it talking about? Sometimes you see, you can also read, if it is a chapter, you can read the first paragraphs, to have a general idea of what is happening. You can also decide to read the introduction. You can decide to read the summary of that chapter. So it helps you again to be able to read a large material, reading material within a short period of time, and you get the gist, the main idea of that written or that reading material. So we are saying that it has its own benefits. You'll be able to read that. It is actually, we say it is faster, it is thorough also, it is faster, and it helps you to read a large kind of a material within a short period of time. Then the other one is light reading. Just as the word suggests, it's light. This is where you read without digesting the material. Digesting means without comprehending so much what you're reading. You don't make analysis of what you're reading. You're just reading to see what is happening. And this is reading that sometimes you can be asked after a short time, what were you reading? Probably you may not be able to remember what you're reading. And it happens when you're reading magazines, when you're reading newspapers. And we say it is not actually recommended for study purposes, because when we are reading for understanding, we take time and we do analysis. The other technique of reading is when you read word by word reading. This again happens when you're doing reading, for example, a mathematical formula, you're reading a procedure in science, you're reading something that needs a lot of attention. You can read word for word so that you understand it. So it is also applied again when someone is learning a new language. For example, you want to start German that you have not learned before, you find yourself reading word for word. You read to digest, to understand step by step. It is recommended when you're doing such procedures, formulas, it is highly recommended. Then we have intensive reading. Intensive reading, we also call it active, detailed type of reading. And this is a type of reading that is required for you as a student. It is very important. This one, you must understand it, and you must be able to use it when you are reading. So we say here, you first begin by surveying the text. You can skim it, you can scan it, and then after that, you identify the areas that you need to concentrate on. So it is comprehensive, meaning you read to understand. It is thorough, it is concentrated. That area that you pick on is the one that you want to read, then you must read it comprehensively with a purpose of understanding it. So it is active, it is interpretive, analytical, you read as you analyze, critical, you read as you ask yourself questions, you agree, you disagree with what is there, then it is evaluative. At the end of the reading, you'll ask, is it adequate what I've read? The explanation that are given, are they enough? Have I understood that idea clearly? Those are the things that you ask yourself. Then we are also saying that it is a type of reading where your purpose is to acquire knowledge. You acquire knowledge. At the end of the day, you will ask yourself, what have I read? What is it that I can remember? What is it that I have understood from what I was reading when you're doing intensive reading? And I've said, when you do intensive reading, you can agree with the ideas that you're given in that text you're reading. You can reject them, but you don't just reject them with what you heard as a rumor. When you reject them, you must be having enough information about that, adequate information about what you reject and what you say is not true. Then you can also partially agree with the ideas that you're reading. You can also completely agree with what you're reading again. So it is in that you interacting with the writer. The writer is not there, but the book that the writer has is there. So you are interacting with that book. That book is life. You are interacting with it. As you read, you are asking yourself questions. Why did the writer do this? What does this mean? The writer has given a different meaning. This meaning is not adequate. This meaning is not enough. This is wrong. You read, this is wrong spellings here. No, this is a wrong explanation. These are wrong examples. Vice versa. These are correct examples. The writer has explained this idea well. So as you read, you get all that. Then we're also saying that it should be done effectively. And effectively reading involves taking notes as you read. This one, you don't just sit and read. You take notes as you read. You write down questions as you read. You answer them as you read. There are gaps in your knowledge that you fill in as you read. So you ensure that you do all that as you continue reading. And we're saying it is important. It is very important for you as you do this kind of reading. It is very important for you to be effective and efficient, and you avoid common poor reading habits. These are habits that will interfere with your comprehension as you read. They may interfere, they may waste your time as you continue reading. And what are they? What are these poor reading habits? One of them, and I want you to understand, I've seen students keep on saying poor reading habits is when we have someone reading when we're lying on the bed. Some other students will say it's reading when you, as you're talking to somebody, is reading as you listen to music. Those are not poor reading habits. It depends on the purpose of your reading. If you're doing light reading, you can read as you listen to music. It will not be a poor reading habit. If, for example, you're reading a book just to have a feel of what is it all about, you can do it even as you talk to somebody. So poor reading habits are the ones that will apply to all types of reading. And one of them is trying to understand every word and consulting the dictionary 1 minute after the other. You are there. So you want to try and understand every word. We are saying meaning is not on the word. Meaning is in the context. So if you come across a word that you don't understand when you're reading, you don't stop reading, you move to check the word in the dictionary. That one will distract you and will now interfere with your speed of reading. It will also interfere with your comprehension, your understanding of what you're reading. So what do you do when you come across a difficult word? You continue reading. As you continue reading, you will get the meaning in the context. If you don't get it, we also say, if you're using your own book, you can underline that word. You can use a pencil, underline it, and you write it later, or you can write it down. Write that difficult word down. Take it after you are through with reading. Why we say it is a poor reading habit? I've said it interferes with your phase of reading, and then again, it also interferes with your understanding of what you're reading. Then we also have sounding out, where some people read as they keep on moving their lips, they produce a sound. That one we say, one, it is slow, it is inefficient. And then again, if you're reading in a place where there are other people, it is also disturbing. It doesn't matter whether you're doing light reading or you're doing word by word reading. If you vocalize, then we say you are disturbing the others. You are slowing down your reading phase because you're involving reading with your mind and also talking. So it is a poor reading habit despite the technique of reading that you're using. Then we have retrogression. This one happens again when you start reading, then you go forwards and backwards. I know you have experienced this. Sometimes you're reading, then you stop, you look up. When you go back to reading, maybe you go back to what you had read earlier, or you skip. So we are saying retrogression. Again, it hinders comprehension, and then it will waste your time. Look at it, you are read 2 paragraphs, now you go back, and it happens more for literature students. For example, if you're reading a novel, it can happen. So that is a poor reading habit. And we also say that one of the causes of retrogression is psychological barriers. you have a problem in your mind. You are not settled in your mind. And then you say, let me read to forget. No, you don't do that. You sort out your psychological issues or problems that you have before you sit down to read. I also say you can postpone them. You can purpose that. I'm not going to think about that. I will think about that later in the evening. Then you walk to the library, pick a book, sit and read. Bring your mind to what you're reading. And we've seen like intensive reading, you cannot read when your mind is not there. You bring your mind to whatever is you are reading. Many times as a student and everybody, we get psychological problems. We have things that are disturbing us. For the students, things like relationships. You had a bad weekend. You had a bad night. Someone annoyed you in the night. Someone maybe your relationship is not working well with whoever. So now when you go to read, it comes into your mind. We say, sort it out. Sort that one out before you start reading. Or decide to sort it later and you put yourself into reading. Then we have also pointing as we read. Some people use a pen. They use a pen to point out what they are reading. One is say it is clumsy. It makes the what you're reading dirty. We also say that it slows down your pace. Your speed of reading cannot be as good if you are underlining and it could become clumsy of what you're reading. No, that one, it is wrong. And when we do it, sometimes you may have just a bad eyesight and you do not know. Maybe you are not seeing clearly, and that is why you underline it. We say, sort out that problem. You could also just lack of concentration. Maybe you are not concentrating well on what you are reading, and that again brings in a problem. Then we also say that sometimes there's frequent head-eye movement. Your head is moving from left to right, and then again from right to left. You are moving your head too much, wasting time. You're moving your eye moves all over. No, when you are reading, your eye is fixed to the page that you're reading, and your head is fixed in one place. Then you read as your head is there, so that you don't waste time. And it also interferes with comprehension and understanding. So I want you to understand that these poor habits that we identify here will apply to every technique of reading. So don't be saying that reading when you are sleeping is a poor reading habit. No, it depends on the purpose of reading. If you're doing light reading, you can do it as you sleep. If you're doing reading for leisure, you can read it as you listen to music. But when it comes to intensive reading, you cannot. So we are saying these ones apply to every other technique that you have used that you use in reading. So they are poor reading habits to any kind of strategy or technique of reading that you're using. Then we have a reading formula here. That formula is the wrong spellings, but I will correct it. And we are saying this is a technique for effective reading. It is a technique that is used for effective reading, and we call it the SQ3R. The Q will stand for survey. S will stand for survey, sorry. Q you can see for a question, read, then recall, then review for the 3 R's. So what is this? We're saying this is a technique that is just developed to help you read effectively and efficiently, and it applies more to when you're reading intensive reading. And we have said intensive reading is the one that is really recommended to you as a student. So it is not a type of reading. I want to be clear, it is not a type of reading. It is what you can apply when you're reading like intensive reading, the steps that you can take when you're doing intensive reading. And it has been agreed upon by many scholars. It has been looked as a good way of reading, and it works well. So what do we start with again? We start with the survey. What do we do at survey now? Survey, of course, we have already discussed survey as a technique or a type of reading. So when you're engaging in intensive reading, before you read, you survey the reading material. the material that you want to read, you survey it. We have said we do survey at 2 levels. 1, we look at survey on the selecting book level. When we are selecting the material, we have looked at the things that we look for. We said we look for the title, we check on the content, we check on the printing history, we check on the publisher's blab, we also check on the in-texts, the glossaries, the references, and all that. We have also said that at that we move now inside the book that we have decided to read. Inside that book, we move on pole to check on the diagrams that are there. Anything that captures our eye as we read, we need to check on it. And in that case, you like when you're doing the survey at the selected book level, you also do it. You begin with the chapter as you move in, and we have explained them earlier that we have the first before the chapter. You will have, for example, someone can use a quotations there. Then you have the title. Then now after that you check on inside the book, and inside what is written is what we call the intra guides. The intra guides will be there. Intra guides, for example, something that is written in a different color, something that is written in capital letters, something that is maybe written in boldface. You now move on and check at the end. For example, there will be a summary there, a conclusion by the writer, and that is what we call now the post guide. So you go back in this survey, read again on the survey technique of reading or type of reading. And I'm saying this, before you start reading a book or a reading material, it is good for you to do a survey of the same. Important things that you should look for, I've already noted them in the survey type of reading. The printing history, very important. When was that book published? Who is the publisher of that book? So that you can be sure it is an authority that you can quote when you are writing, and it is written by an expert. Fine. Then the other one is on question now. The Q stands for question. So what do you do? Before you start reading, there's why you want to read. If it is a given topic, there is why you would want to read that topic. What is it that you're looking for? Formulate those questions before you start reading. What is it that you want to look for? Formulate the questions before you start reading. Ask questions. Don't ask yes or no questions. Don't ask, is it possible to do this and not the other? Don't ask questions that will give you a yes or no. Ask questions that will guide you to look for more information. After you answer it, it guides you to look for more information. So these questions will help you remain focused because you would want to answer them. You would want to know the answers when you are reading. Let your mind also be engaged in questions. What are the main ideas? What is it that you're looking for? How are you going to support this, what you're looking for? Ask yourself questions that lead. You are looking at a book, for example, you're reading about the government of Kenya. You will say, how is the government of Kenya organized? Then you will now be able to go step by step. When you form those questions, we say you remain focused. Why we say you remain focused? Because you are looking for information to answer those questions. You have already identified gaps. You have already identified what you do not know, what you want to know. So as you read, you'll be able to do that. At the end of the day, you'll ask yourself, have you gained the answers to those questions? Do you have the answers now? Have you gained the knowledge that you're looking for from that reading material? So don't just go sit and you start reading. You look at a chapter, you sit down, you start reading. Ask yourself, what is it that you're reading? What are you looking for in the material that you're reading? Then after that, you begin to read. You begin to read. So now, this involves active reading. You will make notes as you read. Why are you making notes? Because you're answering the questions that you have already formulated. You have already identified what you do not know. And what you don't know is now you want to answer. So you must make notes as you read. There is no intensive reading, serious reading that happens when someone is not noting anything at all. In fact, we say when you listen and make notes or take notes, you remember more. If you, for example, you attend a lecture and you just sit there, you are not writing, you are just there, you say, I will listen, I will just listen. At the end of the day, you are likely to forget most of the content. In fact, you were likely to remember maybe 15% of what you did. But if you are writing, you are noting something as you listen, then you are able to remember. The same applies to reading. If you're reading and you are taking notes, then it helps you understand, comprehend more what you are reading. The ideas that you are reading in that book, I've also seen some students just write, it's like they are copying the book. You don't copy the book. You read, understand, write the points in your own words, in words that you can understand. You write in sentences, in phrases that you can understand clearly. But don't copy a book. Don't copy a book when you are reading. The ideas that you're not looking for, you don't need to note them. You only note what you want to look, what you want to use to answer your questions, or what now becomes important information as you move on. Then after that, now, after you have read, you have taken notes, you now move on to the next step of recall. Recall happens now after you have read a portion. For example, you are through with reading a given subtopic. You are not through with reading the whole of the topic, maybe just a portion, a subtopic. What you do now, you close your books. You can close your books and sit down and ask yourself, what can I remember? What have I read? What can I remember? I had questions that I had formulated. Can I remember? Can I answer them now when your books are closed? So you recall. After each portion, you recall. Depending on your capacity of getting knowledge and accommodating what you're reading, some people can do it after one chapter, others after just a small portion. You close your book and sit down and ask yourself, you are there for 30 minutes or 20 minutes. Ask yourself, what was I reading? What can I remember? Then after that, you find that there are things you can't remember. There are questions that you had formulated earlier, you don't have the answers. There are things that you have noted down and you don't understand. So you go back now, check, what is this? What is this? What is this? I can't remember. You remind yourself. Then you continue reading. Then the last step is now the review. So this is now done once you are through with reading. You are now through with reading. You have read a whole chapter or a whole section. You are through with that. So what you do in review is that you can go over all the questions that you had formulated earlier, see whether you have the answers to those questions that you have formulated earlier. You can also see what is it that you can remember. Do you have the answers to all the questions that you have formulated? Have you added more relevant information to it? Do you coordinate the information that you have in that chapter? Are you able to follow? If you're reading something that requires procedures, are you now able to follow the procedure of what you wanted from the beginning? What is it that you can remember? At this stage, you can also go over your notes. You can go through the notes that you had made and look at it. And then after that, you sit down and just ask yourself, oh, what is it that I was reading? What is it that I can remember? We always say that what you remember is what you have read, not the content. Don't say you have covered 2 chapters in a book. What you have covered is what you can be able to remember. And we're saying now this review should be done regularly. You decide, you can decide, I'll be going back to that chapter after 2 days. I'll be going back to that chapter after 1 week. After 2 weeks, I'll go back to that chapter. I check on the notes. So what happens with the review now is constant. You do it over and over again. And then when you are reviewing and you find that there is so much that you cannot remember, there is so much that you have forgotten, then we say now you repeat the steps. You go back, you repeat the questions, you repeat the reading, and then the recall, then you move to the review. And if you adopt this kind of formula of reading, then you will not need to rush during the exams. You are there reading day and night. You are there translating. When people are sleeping, you are reading the whole night because you have not been reading. But if you do this kind of technique of reading, then you find that by the time exams are being set, by the time you are sitting for the exams, you already know what you need to use. You already have enough content for the exams. But if you just read, you put your books there, then you just one day you read everything. There's no time for review. You read the whole of that chapter, the whole of that unit, you are reading it as a whole sum, and then after that you are rushing, you're going to sit for an exam. You not do well. But if you start this kind of reading and you take it serious for all the units that you have, you will not rush during the exam. You will not get a blackout during the exam. You will have answers. You will have enough content to answer the questions that will be set in all that are set in the exams in all the units. So let's adapt it. It's a good way. It is agreeable. You can see. You can try it. Try it. Today in the evening, sit down. See, now I'm going to try this. You see. You will see. It will work. Then we talked about note making. Note making as we read, and we say that note making is important during reading. Why is it important? I've already said it helps you to remember. Reading is an activity that is active. You are active in mind and active also in taking notes. So you cannot just read. You are in the library, a whole 1 hour, you are there, you are just reading, you're not taking notes, especially in intensive reading. In light reading, you may not want to take notes. If you're reading just for leisure, you may not need to take notes. But even sometimes, even when you're reading for leisure, you can also note something. You can see, for example, you are reading about this, about beauty. You see some other cream there, especially the ladies, and so this one works very well. After maybe this period of time, this is what is going to happen to me. So you also note, you write that the name of that cream, you go and look for it later. If you're reading in a newspaper, you see, oh, there's something that you didn't know. You can also just write it down. So note taking is also very important. And we're saying that it happens, you select, it is selective. Note taking, it is selective. I have seen students go to the library, they are reading, they are copying, they are writing through, they are writing for 1 hour, they are writing. Then after that, now they walk out of the library and assume that what they have written is what they have gained. That is not true. What you have learned is what you can remember. So there's the idea of being critical. Again, there could be some mistakes in books that we read. There could be something. You must criticize what you're writing. And that is why your mind, as you begin writing, is not empty. A mind of a student or any scholar is not empty. There's what you know. There's already what you know, and you're trying to interact with the writer. You see what you know outside what you are reading. And what you know is there's what we know as rumor, and there's what we know as right. Rumor is what you hear. But what you know is what you have read from a good writer, an expert in that area, and you understand it. So you criticize. And we also say it is a personal process. It's a personal process. The way you do it is different from the way another person will do it. Then you also need a good format of writing your notes, a good format of making notes as you read. You must come up with a structure. when you're making notes, more often than not, it's not good for you to do it in paragraph form. You're writing a paragraph, another paragraph, and you're making notes. No, you make them on note form. As you make them on the note form, you will be faster. You'll be faster. In fact, we are saying you can make use of non-sentence. Non-sentence is a sentence that is not, like an incomplete sentence. It's not complete. I've given an example there. For example, your title is Causes of HIV. Okay, then now you see the sentence should be HIV is spread through irresponsible behavior. You can just write the causes, irresponsible behavior. Then you move on. You move on because you already have the subtopic there. The notes that you make must be notes that you understand. And within a very short period of time, you can be able to go over them and understand. They are personal. Notes are personal. Even when you are in a lecture, you don't need to take and write everything that the lecturer says. No. You identify what the topic is and what is relevant to that topic, and you do it in note form. You can make use of dashes, numbers, bullets. You can, for example, number your point to 1A, maybe can make use of Roman numbers. Can you make use of letters on what you're reading so that you don't write? We say paragraphs can be clumsy. They can slow down your pace of reading. So, and again, when you write them in paragraphs, when you come to revise, we are talking about the review. When you come to do the review in paragraphs, it will take you again time. So do them in note form. You can make use of abbreviations. Abbreviations, you're good at that. In abbreviations, you have them in the use of your SMSs. You can make use of signs. You can make use of acronyms. Acronyms are shortened form of a sentence or a command. For example, when we talk about UNESCO, all of us know UNESCO. All of us can say UNESCO and we know what it is. But if you ask us, what is the full name of this? Some of us will take time. Corona. I mean, not Corona, but COVID. COVID is an acronym. What does it mean? Find out. So when you are writing notes, you can make use of acronyms. Acronyms are just names that we form from. You can form them from, for example, a whole title. You can form them from a whole sentence, but they can be personalized. We have the common ones. You can personalize them so that when you're reading your notes, you understand. Then we're also saying that you can make use of transcoding. Transcoding is when you record information in terms of that transcoding. I will correct it. You can make use of transcoding when you are reading. Transcoding is the idea of putting information in a diagram. Okay, look at, for example, those who are doing business, the supply and the demand curve. You just draw it, the y-axis, the x-axis there, and then a curve there. Then this side, there is prices or whatever out on the other side. And looking at it at a glance, immediately, you can get a lot of information in it. So when you're reading, you can come up with a chart. You can just come up with a diagram. And we say it is a good way of making comprehensive information or making information clear and precise. A diagram will be clear. It will communicate a lot of information at a glance. And just looking at it like this, you're getting so much. So we are saying when you're doing notes, when you're making notes as you read, you can make use of transcoding. And transcoding means representing information just in a diagram. It is easier. It is easier and also makes the work comprehends. I want to say it makes the work condense. It condenses what you're reading and easy. And I'm giving an example of the demand supply curve that you just draw like this, then the axis is there, and a lot of information we can get on that. When we are drawing charts for the rainfall, we just draw charts there, we show countries here, the amount of rainfall that they have received, and then from there we get a lot of information from that. And with that, I think we are ready to go. There's a task there. We have done reading. We have done a number of types of reading. You can also look at extensive reading. You can also look at factors that you consider. For example, when you are selecting a reading material, what factors would you consider when you're doing materials? There's a type of reading that we call extensive reading that I've not covered here, and I would want you to do it at your own time. Just look at what is extensive reading, try to compare it with intensive reading and see what it entails. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening to me. I will make the PDF available. And I would want to invite anyone who has a comment. Dr. Omoke, are you there? Dr. Omoke. Emis.
No, I don't have much to say. I've enjoyed the class. Perhaps we can invite Dr. Mogaka to give an announcement.
Okay, Dr. Mogaka.
Okay, thank you, Eunice, and I hope the rest of the students you have been following very keenly, because some of these materials definitely will be part of what you'll be examined on in your final exam. Now we have got one or two announcements to make. Number one, I ask that the student program leaders, there are some scripts for the CAT 1 which are ready. They can be collected from my office. It's next to the university clinic from 1 up to 2. There are some which are not ready, but it's important that you come and check whether they are ready, and you send your program representatives. For example, if it's finance, send one person. If it's law, send one person. If it's BBIT, send one person to come for the scripts. So that is the first announcement I would like to make. The second one is that as we were marking the cards, we realized that some of you sat in venues where you are not supposed to be sitting. We requested that you don't do the same during the main exam. Before the end of the week, as we informed you last week, we shall be giving you your sitting arrangements, and make sure you stick to your sitting arrangements. And if your number does not appear among the sitting arrangements that we are going to release, you either come and see me or see Dr. Moke or see any of the lecturers who are taking you through the sessions. And remember, provisionally, your exam is planned for 6th of December from 8:30 to 10:30, and we shall be announcing to you what the do's and the don'ts about the exams. So that is, and then Group B, we are meeting in TH from 8:30 for a quick assessment for the remaining groups. But it's important that the rest of the groups attend who are supposed to be in Group B. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mukaka, for this for that announcement. I hope the students have gotten it clearly.
Sorry, another one that I would like to announce is that once we are through with the recording of your math for CAT 1, we shall also plan for a makeup cut for the students who failed to turn up for the first cut, but you must have a good reason and evidence as to why you did not attempt the first cut. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening to me. Thank you. I can see a number of lecturers also are present. I want to thank all the students who attended the class. And those who also did not attend the class, please purpose to be attending these classes. They are important and they are meant for you. Otherwise, at the end of the presentation, I wish you a good day.